I get so much hate over this freaking guitar that today I am finally going to break down why it looks like this for all of you who, constantly comment, I can't trust somebody who has a guitar like that. How did that freaking happen? I'm going to explain how this happened and how I took it from this place of disrepair, so to speak, and brought it to a place where it sounds really freaking good. Now, for those of you who do agree that this instrument sounds pretty darn solid, I would suggest watching through the entire video. I'm not going to try to waste any of your time, but I think it'll be helpful so you can kind of pick up all of the little nuggets of information along the way. I will provide, all of the little adjustments I made. I'll give you some resources so that you can do it on your own if that's something you're looking to do. And some of the ways I kind of worked around the specific confines, right? There's usually little rules that you want to follow, but of course we can work outside of them based on our specific instrument. So I'll give you some of that insight as well. And for those of you who don't think that this instrument sounds good, I'm so sorry. What can I say? But this video might not be for you. All right, so really quick for those haters, I suppose, who are like, how did this freaking happen? Well, really quick, this was kind of my first, not kind of, this was my first like higher level instrument, right? I started with the, the Fender, the Strat, the Squire, that was all black, that came in like the, beginner pack that had the little amp. In fact, it was my brother's, it was like a hand-me-down. And once I stuck with it, as a birthday gift, when I'm 16, my mom got me this. And so this is a 20-year-old guitar. And listen, I wanted to be a cool kid. I tried to sand it down. You can even see if you look really close, there's like sandpaper marks. And I wanted it to have an even more roughed up look. I took it to a friend's roof. I'm scratching it. It started chipping away the paint. I realized maybe this isn't a great idea. But then, of course, the paint started chipping because of that. Then I started peeling it. And here we are. That's why it looks this way. That's why it looks a bit mangled. But over time, the actual instrument got warped because, as you can see, and I'm sure you might have the exact same experience, we all start investing in different instruments or, different guitars. We start playing those more frequently. Winter comes around, summer comes around, it gets dry, it gets humid, it gets dry, it gets humid. And then over the course of a few years, this thing becomes warped. All right. All of the wood inside of this instrument gets warped. And then before you know it, it does not sound the way it sounded when you first had it under your fingers. Now, I, can make some adjustments on my own, but I do usually like bringing it to a local professional. I was living in New York City for the past gazillion years. And this is something that happens that you might, again, have some common experience with, where you bring it into a place, you get some advice, you think, I don't know if that's great, or you do get it set up and you go, there's still some fret buzzing going on. It doesn't play exactly the way I like to. And what a freaking bummer to spend, in New York, sometimes $150+ to get your instrument set up, and then it doesn't play great. For $150 to just set this thing up, it should play great. And so I brought it into a place where they said, oh, this is just a parts guitar, but we'll buy it from you for like $150. Like, okay, well, if it's a parts guitar, why do you want it? This is a Mexican bodied Strat, but it's American pickups, noiseless pickups. For those of you who are interested, I think it has that great kind of mimicking a Stevie Ray Vaughan tone when I put it on the neck middle pickup. And anyways, they said it was a parts guitar. I took it to another place. They said that the truss rod was most likely snapped, but they didn't actually try to adjust or anything like that. So, I took it home. I was like, do I want to do either of those things? Not really. So I decided to give it my own setup and go from there. Now, in the description, I will link 2 videos that I think are super helpful for setting up a Strat specifically. So one of them is a series where he takes you through each step, really brief, concise videos. It's like a few minutes each video. And then another one where it is a longer video where he takes you through the steps, but it's just one long video. And each one of them has some different specifications and will give you different insights and just, some slight variations where you can kind of pick and choose, your own best practices. But I thought those were super helpful. And it's not a really complex thing. It's how much neck relief, right? So adjusting the truss rod. There's a little hole here where you can adjust the truss rod, excuse me. The actual bridge, right? The bridge action, and then the nut action, and then intonation, setting up the intonation, which wouldn't really necessarily have as much to do with playability as it would to actually just sounding in tune as you go higher up on the neck. But those are really the 4 things you need to think about. And rather than take you through that myself, why not just look at those videos? I'm not the expert in that case, although I do think I did a decent job. But really what I want to go over are the adjustments inside of those specific kind of rules. So, you have different measuring tools, and they'll show you in the video all the tools you need to measure out, the distance from your strings to the actual fretboard. And it's just a good reminder that if there's still some fret buzz going on, keep playing with things. So when you're working on, bridge action, well, I think the rule of thumb is like 6/64ths of an inch. But if it's like 6.2, 6.3, 64ths of an inch, is it really that big of a deal as far as playability goes? Maybe for some of you who really, really are super specific, it might be a big deal. But for others, you might say, okay, it's going to stop buzzing. It's up a tiny bit, like a fraction, higher. Who cares? Maybe if there's a little more, neck relief, it doesn't really necessarily change things too much as far as playability. Again, for those of you who are super specific, it might, but for others, it's, if you just want an instrument that plays pretty dang well, then it might be okay for you. And that's really the most important thing, is recognizing that you can make some small adjustments outside of those reference points. So don't feel like you need to be bogged down by that, and that you can really play around, especially if you have a guitar like this where you can practice setting things up. Because I do think it's helpful once you move on to your other instruments, just having a feel for, what you can do as far as a setup is concerned. The other things I would look out for, you have a few pieces here. You've got your springs, right? These might need to be replaced. Mine didn't, but those are things to look at. If you have a guitar that's kind of been off in a corner for a few years, these things can rust and just get funky, right? What I needed to replace were the bridge saddles. You can see that they're a different color. The other ones were like so chewed up, maybe is the right word. They had these huge, deep grooves. So I replaced those, and that was an important replacement that needed to take place. So think about that. And then because the body had gotten so warped, the actual pickups, somebody playing this might have gone, oh, there's a lot of fret buzz going on. No. The pickups were so raised out of the body that the strings were literally vibrating against them. So those needed to be adjusted and brought down a little bit. And those are just some additional things to think about. But kind of to summarize, give your guitar a setup if you have one like this, or if you're just like, what's going on with my guitar? Give it a setup, right? If you don't have a Strat, just search up, right? You don't have to click those links, but look up your make and model. I have a Gibson Les Paul, how to set up my Gibson Les Paul. I guarantee you there are a gazillion videos on YouTube giving you that information. So how to set up your guitar, look it up, give it a try. It's really not that scary or big of a deal. There's just a few little things that you need to do. Most guitars actually come with the tools that you need to adjust it and give it a setup. So try that out. Once you get it to the specifications, like, Fender has some specifications, although they've changed over the years. That's why it's important to be okay with giving yourself some wiggle room. Once you get it to the place where, you're hitting all of the specs, all the requirements and the rules of thumb, make those small adjustments based on how it's sounding when you play it. All right. Don't be afraid to, get the action a little higher. Don't be afraid to give it a little more neck relief, things like that. And then, of course, check out the other pieces on your guitar that might need to be replaced and fixed up, that go beyond the actual setup. But once you do those things, I'm just looking at my notes, you should be in a decent place, and you'll feel really good that you fixed up your guitar, and now you're, even more about your instrument, and you're even more in tune with it and synced up with it. And I think those things are really fun. So, for all of you who are like, this is such an unsightly appearance, I'm sorry, it has sentimental value. It's going to remain on the wall. But it also is really playable. This is now my tuned down half a step guitar. And so anytime I want to play Stevie Ray Vaughan or Hendrix and play along with a track, I can just pick this thing up and I don't have to retune all my other guitars down half a step and then retune it to standard tuning. So those are nice things to have access to, especially if you have a few instruments. So anyways, I hope this was helpful. Just wanted to give an explanation, and I will see you on the next ones where you will actually get some lessons on how to play this freaking thing.